As I've told you earlier, February is the month of wars in 2026. Similarly, Pakistan recently has launched airstrikes in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul, and other cities as well, as clashes escalate along the two countries in the shared border. On Friday, Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Asif said Islamabad's patience has run out with the Taliban authorities in Afghanistan, declaring that these two countries are now at an open war. This declaration comes hours after Taliban's spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said Afghanistan was carrying out large-scale offensive operations against the Pakistani military along the Durand line, which separates the two countries, by the way. The escalation follows months of tensions between these two countries, with Islamabad accusing Kabul of sheltering militants responsible for attacks inside Pakistan. However, the strain between the two countries is rooted in a much longer history. Since 1947 itself, their relationship have largely been marked by distrust, hostility, and recurring confrontations. These tensions have persisted across changes in governments in Pakistan and major upheavals in Afghanistan as well, including the Soviet intervention in 1979 to 89 and the US intervention from 2001 to 2021. Now, there have been several regime changes in Afghanistan, and they have seen a turbulent political history as well. One was the end of the monarchy and the communist rule, 1973 to 89. Afghanistan's monarchy ended in 1973, followed by a brief nationalist phase and then 11 years of communist rule backed by Soviet Union. The regime attempted sweeping political and social reforms but failed to stabilize the country. Then the phase came of Najibullah and collapse from 1989 to 1992. After the Soviet withdrawal, President Najibullah led a nationalist government for 3 years. His administration collapsed in 1992, paving the way for internal conflict. And then came the era of civil war and first Taliban rule. Afghanistan descended into a civil war between Mujahideen factions and the emerging Taliban movement. Formed in 1994, the Taliban, which was supported by Pakistan, captured Kabul in 1996 and controlled most of the country. And then started US intervention and Islamic Republic from 2001. Now, following September 11, 2001 attacks, as we call it as 9/11, the US invaded Afghanistan, ousting the Taliban and establishing the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. However, the new political system struggled to gain lasting stability in the region, and the Taliban insurgency persisted. And then came 2021, Taliban's return to power. After the US withdrawal in August of 2021, Taliban swiftly defeated Afghan's government forces, regaining control of entire country once again with Pakistan's backing and re-establishing their rule over Afghanistan. See, but there have been persistent fault lines in Pakistan-Afghanistan relationship. And the major fault line is with the Durand line dispute, a core dispute which remains Afghanistan's refusal to formally recognize the Durand line as the international border. And it has fueled recurring tensions over sovereignty and territorial claims between the two. Now, there are other reasons as well. Trade, transit, strategic control. There have been disagreements over transit routes. Trade access have deepened mistrust as well, with Afghanistan accusing Pakistan of exerting undue influence and control over its affairs. And there have been mutual resentments, like many Afghans resent what they perceive as Pakistan's interference since the fall of monarchy. Conversely, Pakistan views Afghans as ungrateful, citing its hosting of millions of refugees and support for Afghan resistance movements against the Soviet Union and US. The Pakistani groups feel that Afghan people have been ungrateful to them, which is why another reason of persistent clashes between the two. And then comes the India factor. India's presence and engagement in Afghanistan have long shaped Pakistan's security concerns, adding another layer of complexity to the bilateral tensions. Pakistan fears strategic encirclement by India and Afghanistan and seeks to limit Kabul's ties with New Delhi. However, Afghan governments resist external influence over its foreign policy choices. And currently, Pakistan views Taliban's outreach to India as a betrayal, deepening tensions and reinforcing long-standing suspicions between the two neighbors. And when we talk about this Durand line, which is a root cause of Pakistan-Afghanistan tension, it is actually a 2,640-kilometer Durand line, which was drawn in 1893 by Sir Mortimer Durand, dividing territories of Afghan ruler Amir Abdul Rahman Khan. The demarcation split Pashtun tribal lands and was initially meant to define spheres of influence, not a permanent international border. See, historical and cultural differences between Pashtun and Punjab-dominated Pakistani state, they remain significant. While British India later treated the Durand line as a permanent boundary, a position inherited by Pakistan in 1947, Afghanistan rejected this interpretation altogether. It even opposed Pakistan's entry into the United Nations as well, arguing that Pashtun territory ceded to British India should revert to Afghanistan. The Durand line disputes even today remains unresolved. Even in 2018, Afghanistan objected when Pakistan integrated its tribal areas into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, reaffirming Kabul's long-standing refusal to accept the border's finality. So you have to understand one more strategic point as well. As a landlocked country, Afghanistan depends on transit access through neighboring states, primarily Pakistan, Iran and Central Asian republics. And amongst these, the Pakistan route is geographically and economically most viable to Afghanistan. Successive Afghan government has sought permission for overland trade between India and Afghanistan via the Wagah border. Pakistan has refused to allow Indian exports and aid through this territory, fueling resentment in the Kabul region. Tensions intensify when Pakistan restricts goods entering Afghanistan through land routes or via Karachi port. And such actions are widely viewed in Afghanistan as the use of connectivity and transit access as instruments of political coercion, which is why there are tensions deepening between these two countries. Now let's discuss what happened to this recent October Pakistan-Afghanistan ceasefire, because recently in October 2025 itself, they had a ceasefire. Now again in February of 2026, they've again started a full-fledged war. So what happened to that ceasefire? See, in October of 2025, Afghanistan and Pakistan agreed to a short 48-hour ceasefire after several days of intense border clashes triggered by militant attacks and retaliatory airstrikes. Now, the truce was achieved through urgent diplomatic contacts and mediation efforts by the regional actors, including that of Qatar and Turkey, who pushed both sides to pause fighting and open channels for dialogue. However, the ceasefire was temporary and it lacked a formal enforcement mechanism. And once it expired, accusations actually quickly resurfaced. Pakistan alleged continued cross-border activity by the Tehreek-e-Taliban, TTP Pakistan, from Afghan's territory, while Afghan authorities accused Pakistan of renewed airstrikes and violations of sovereignty. Now, with this deep mistrust unresolved and no lasting security guarantees in place, border tensions and sporadic clashes, they resumed in the following months between these two countries. But now the question is, where is the war going? See, one thing you have to understand in this scenario. At the same time while Pakistan and Afghanistan is at war, Israel and US have attacked Iran, and Iran has retaliated as well. So there is a war going in Middle East region as well. There is a war going in Asian region as well. And if we see data, currently there are numerous conflicts and wars which are going around in the world. Now, because of this war between Afghanistan and Pakistan, it has a direct impact on India as well, because there is an India factor involved. India's relationship with Afghanistan is very, very crucial. So which is why Indians would definitely support Afghanistan. But yes, diplomatically, we won't take a side. But of course, Indians will be more favorable towards Afghanistan as compared to Pakistan. But still, this retaliation and conflict between Afghanistan and Pakistan must be resolved. And for that, the resolution of Durand line is very, very imminent and very, very important. Until unless this Durand line dispute is resolved and this cross-border terrorist activities, acquisition by both the countries is resolved, the conflict is far from over. Again, there will be a ceasefire, and again, eventually after several months, they'll start clashing again. See, what is required is a permanent solution to this conflict. Because if that is achieved, if the border tension between both the countries is met, is solved, is pacified, then eventually what we will see is a peaceful, stable region. But until and unless that happens, this region alongside the Middle East region will remain unstable. And if this region remains unstable, economic prosperity of both Afghanistan and Pakistan will be in peril. Because we have to understand, economically, both the countries are doing really, really bad. And both are underdeveloped. Per capita income of both the countries is very less. GDP growth rate is very, very less. So for them, not to focus on war, but internally focusing on self-development is required, is the way ahead. I hope the current situation and escalation between Pakistan and Afghanistan is very clear to all of you. And the suggestions are also very clear to all of you. Do let me know what are your views and your suggestions in the comment section. Keep learning. All the very best and have a beautiful day. Thank you.